My nephew destroyed my $3,000 gaming rig while I was forced to babysit, and when I finally said enough, my whole family turned on me. Hey Reddit, 28 male, never thought I'd be the guy posting here, but my family managed to turn my life into a circus, and I figured strangers on the internet might appreciate the show. Long story short, my brother, his wife, and their kid moved to my city, and somehow I went from cool uncle to free daycare. It got messy fast. Thought I'd share how it all went down. I'll be straight up from the jump. I don't like kids, never wanted them, never pretended otherwise. I'm good with being the fun uncle who shows up at family gatherings, tosses a football around, then goes home to my clean, quiet apartment. That's the role I signed up for. Not second dad, not backup babysitter, definitely not free daycare center. I'm a software developer, 30, working fully remote. Got a solid setup going. Nice salary, sleek modern apartment, furniture I actually picked because I liked it, not because it was on clearance. My place looks like a minimalist Instagram post, except it's not staged. It's just me being picky as hell about my space. I work, I lift, I game, I travel. That's the life I built, and I don't apologize for it. And yeah, we used to travel a lot. Me and my girlfriend Lisa, 26 female, made it a priority. Every month we'd hit somewhere new. Mexico last fall, Iceland before that, Vegas for the UFC fights. That was before the babysitting storm hijacked our calendar. Lisa's the kind of girl who can go from hiking boots to heels in the same weekend. She's cool, supportive, and doesn't nag me about settling down. She's not built like that. She likes freedom the same way I do. Enter my brother Anthony, 34, always been the golden boy in the family. If you ask my parents, he invented electricity and raised me single-handedly while curing cancer. In reality, he's just a guy who played Big Brother, while mom and dad worked night shifts back when we were kids. Sure, he watched me sometimes. Doesn't mean I owe him my adult life. But you'd think I signed a lifelong contract with the way everyone talks about it. Anthony and his wife Trisha moved to my city last year. Trisha had landed a fancy job offer here, and not long after, Anthony decided to quit his cushy remote gig to chase a so-called dream career in architecture. That's when the money problems really started creeping in. They've got a kid, Theo, 5 years old. When they first got here, they asked me to babysit occasionally, like once every couple of weeks if they had a doctor's appointment or a date night. No big deal. Theo wasn't that bad in the beginning. Quiet. Played with his toys. Watched cartoons. I could keep working while he sat there like a background NPC. At first, I didn't mind. They were new here. No family around, no support system. I figured I'd help them get settled. Plus, it gave me some free leverage. You know, if I ever needed someone to water my plants or grab a package when I was out of town, I could call it in. But from day one, Trisha rubbed me the wrong way. She's one of those people who acts like the world should bend around her because she's a mom. You know the type. Entitled, ignorant about how much she asks of people, and always ready to play the family duty card when she wants something. The kind of woman who looks at your life and decides it's less important because you don't have kids. I should have clocked it earlier. One of the first times she dropped Theo off, she scanned my apartment like a building inspector, ran her hand across my glass coffee table like she was checking for dust, then told me it was dangerous for Theo, pointed out my bookshelves and said I should secure them to the wall, even made a comment about my collectibles on the mantle, said I should put them somewhere safe before Theo breaks them. Lady, you just walked into my home for free babysitting? And your review is needs childproofing? I smiled, nodded, but in my head I was thinking, sure, I'll baby-proof. I'll bubble wrap my PS5, padlock the fridge, and replace my couch with a bouncy castle. Anything else, Your Majesty? But back then, I let it slide. Anthony's my brother, and I figured this was temporary. What's a couple afternoons here and there? Theo wasn't the worst kid on earth. At least not yet. Meanwhile, me and Lisa were living it up. Weekend getaways, flights booked months in advance, bucket list stuff. She's been itching to go to Portugal with me since I grew up partly there before moving stateside. We had it penciled in for this year. Point is, my life was full. Babysitting wasn't supposed to take up more than a few hours in the background. Looking back now, I should have known the setup was too perfect. Whenever something in my family looks stable, it's usually because a bomb's about to drop. And oh boy, Anthony had one hell of a bomb waiting. Because while I was over here building the kind of life where I could afford to pick up and fly somewhere on a whim, my brother decided to chase his dream job. Not just any dream job, an entry-level position in architecture. The man left his cushy remote gig with solid pay and flexible hours and swapped it for a 40% pay cut and a full-time office grind. You heard that right. 40% cut. When he told me over coffee one morning, I congratulated him. I mean, what else was I supposed to do? He looked excited, like a kid unwrapping a new Xbox. I didn't want to be the guy who says, "Congrats on torpedoing your finances." But the second he said entry level, I knew this wasn't going to end well for him. Or me. What he didn't mention that morning was how his little career reboot was about to bulldoze its way into my life. 2 weeks after his dream job started, Trisha called me on a Tuesday night. "Hey, can you watch Theo tomorrow? Anthony's at the office late and I've got meetings." "Sure, fine." One day. Then Thursday rolled around. Another call. "Something came up. Can you do today too?" By the following week, it was no longer a request. It was practically a schedule. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes Tuesday got thrown in for good measure. 6, 7, 8 hours at a time. Suddenly, my apartment wasn't an apartment anymore. It was a holding cell for a 5-year-old whose energy levels put Red Bull to shame. And here's the kicker. The quiet Theo I used to watch? That kid disappeared the second Anthony started this new job. I don't know if they changed his diet, if he sniffed glue, or if he just decided to unleash his inner demon at my place. But this kid turned into a full-on wrecking ball. He'd scream during my work calls, pound on the door while I was in meetings, or randomly blast cartoons at full volume. It wasn't background noise anymore. It was chaos. I went from presenting software solutions to Fortune 500 clients to trying to negotiate with a kindergartner about why he couldn't eat peanut butter straight from the jar with his hands. The first time it cost me something real. I remember sitting in front of my dual monitors, headset on, pitching a client on a new system we'd been working on for 3 months. Theo decided that was the perfect time to sprint through my living room with one of those toy guns that fire foam darts. Except he'd MacGyvered it with rubber bands to launch harder. One dart smacked my webcam, knocking it sideways so the client's entire boardroom got a great view of my ceiling fan. I tried to recover, but Theo followed up by screaming, "I'm the king!" at the top of his lungs. That call ended in disaster. My boss called me after and asked if I was working from a Chuck E. Cheese. Not exactly the kind of rep you want in tech, but the worst moment, the real breaking point, came a couple weeks later. Theo got curious about my setup. I built my own gaming PC years ago. Custom case, liquid cooling, all the bells and whistles. Thing ran smoother than a dream, and it doubled as my workhorse machine. I'd invested thousands into it. One afternoon, I left Theo on the couch with some Legos while I stepped into the kitchen to grab a drink. I come back, and the kid's on my chair like it's a throne, mashing every button he can find. Before I could get there, he yanked one of the external cables, the tower tipped, and crash. The glass side panel shattered, liquid coolant leaking like my soul was draining onto the carpet. I froze. He just looked up at me with that clueless kid smile, like he hadn't just murdered my pride and joy. I didn't even yell. I just stood there in silence, staring at the wreckage, while Theo asked if he could have juice. Later that night, I priced the damage. Between the panel and the system I'd have to rebuild, it was nearly $3,000 gone. $3,000 because my brother decided his passion project mattered more than arranging daycare. I called Anthony about it. He gave me the classic line, "He's just a kid, man. You've got to be more patient." Patient? I told him if patience could replace a custom GPU, I'd be zen as hell. Spoiler, it can't. Meanwhile, Trisha started dropping Theo off with entertainment packs. Sounds harmless, right? Except her definition of entertainment was bags of toys that made more noise than an air raid siren. Drums, toy vacuums, those stupid little keyboards that play the same 5 notes on loop. She'd smile, hand me the bag, and say, "This should keep him busy." Yeah, busy destroying what was left of my sanity. Lisa tried to help at first. She'd entertain Theo while I finished up meetings, take him out for walks, even cook him lunch when Trisha forgot. But she started to see how deep it was cutting into our lives. Trips got canceled. Weekends were spent recovering from weekday chaos. One night, she sat me down and said, "Babe, I love your family, but this is ridiculous. You're basically raising their kid." And she wasn't wrong. My career was slipping. Our relationship was on hold. And Anthony and Trisha acted like I was just doing the bare minimum of family duty. I gave them one warning. I told Anthony straight, "I'll help sometimes, but I can't keep doing this. It's wrecking my work and my place." He gave me a half-assed apology. "Yeah, I'll talk to Theo about respecting your stuff." Nothing changed. Second time, I wasn't so nice. I told him flat out, "Your kid broke $3,000 worth of gear. You're paying for damages." That's when he got defensive. "Come on, man. He's 5. You're overreacting. You don't understand. You don't have kids." Right. And after dealing with Theo, I was even more sure I never wanted them. I hung up on him that night and sat in silence, staring at the wreck of my gaming tower. All I could think was how fast things had escalated. 1 year ago, I was living my dream, traveling, working on big projects, building a setup that would make any nerd jealous. Now, I was an unpaid babysitter with a trashed apartment and a boss questioning if I even took my job seriously. And that was before Trisha dropped the kind of comment that made me realize this wasn't just temporary. In her mind, this was permanent. It happened on a Thursday. I was midway through a work sprint, headphones on, finally in a groove after weeks of chaos. My door's got a smart lock. Best investment I ever made. Or so I thought. I gave Anthony the code months earlier for emergencies. Turns out, emergency in Trisha's dictionary means I feel like barging in uninvited. I didn't even hear the door until Theo came running past my desk screaming, "Uncle!" Lego bricks flying like confetti. I ripped my headphones off, and there she was, Trisha, waltzing in like she owned the place. No text, no call, no warning. Just strolling through my apartment, coffee in hand, dragging a bag of toys behind her. "Trisha," I said, standing up. "What the hell are you doing? You can't just walk in here." She gave me that fake surprised look, like I was the one in the wrong. "Oh, Anthony gave me the code." I figured it was fine. You know, family. Right. Because family apparently means free rent, free childcare, and no privacy. She dropped Theo's stuff in the living room and immediately went into home inspector mode again. Except this time, she didn't just point things out. She actually started moving them. My gaming controller? Picked it up, put it on a shelf out of reach. My gym bag? Dragged it into the corner so Theo wouldn't trip. And then she got to the big one. My rebuilt PC. The one I just spent weeks fixing after Theo destroyed the first one. She crouched down, eyed it like it was a ticking time bomb, and said, "This really shouldn't be out here. I'll just slide it over by the wall for now." "Don't touch that," I snapped, stepping between her and my desk. She raised her hands like I'd overreacted. "Relax. I'm just trying to keep Theo safe. Honestly, if you're going to keep babysitting, you really should make your apartment more child-friendly. Babysitting. Like it was my actual job title. Like she'd written it on my resume under skills. I asked her point blank, "Did you just say if I'm going to keep babysitting?" She smirked, sipping her coffee. "Well, yeah. You're great with him. You'll have your hands full soon once we have another baby." Time stopped. "Another baby?" I said slowly. "Yep," she said, all casual. "We're trying for a girl this year. Anthony and I figured you'd want to be involved. You're already basically like a second parent to Theo." I swear I blacked out for a second. The audacity wasn't just high, it was stratospheric. Here's this woman standing in my apartment uninvited, moving my stuff around, and now casually announcing that I'll be drafted to raise not one, but 2 kids. All without so much as asking. I laughed, not the happy kind. The kind of laugh you do when you're 2 seconds from losing it. "Trisha, let me get this straight. You break into my place using my smart lock code, rearrange my stuff, and now you're telling me you're planning another kid for me to babysit? What's next? You want me to start paying for diapers too?" She rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic. Anthony's always been there for you. Now it's your turn to give back. Real men step up for family." There it was. The line. Real men. I couldn't help but smirk. Funny. I thought real men raise their own kids instead of outsourcing them to their brother for free. Guess I missed that memo. She didn't like that. She grabbed Theo's toy bag and snapped, "You have no idea how hard it is. You don't have kids. You don't get it." "You're right," I said, walking to the door and holding it open. "I don't have kids, and I like it that way. That's why I'm not raising yours." She huffed out, Theo trailing behind her, blissfully unaware he'd just been at the center of a war. The door clicked shut, and I immediately changed my smart lock code. Family emergency or not, that privilege was revoked. When Anthony got home later, my phone lit up with texts. "Why'd you change the lock? Trisha said you were rude. She's just trying to help." Help? She was about as helpful as a brick through a windshield. That night, Lisa and I sat on the couch, scrolling through flight options. I needed an escape, badly. We'd been holding off on travel because of Theo duty, and it was eating at both of us. I pulled up the tickets I'd been eyeing for months. Tomorrowland Festival. Bucket list stuff. Lisa leaned over my shoulder, eyes lighting up. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I said. "We're going. 2 weeks. No babysitting, no interruptions. Just us." She grinned. Finally. Of course, fate being what it is, Anthony and Trisha showed up unannounced. I hadn't booked the tickets yet, just had the site open when my doorbell went off like a siren. I cracked the door but didn't open it wide. Theo was bouncing behind them with his toy bag. "You're going where?" Anthony tried to peek past me at my laptop. "Tomorrowland," I said. "Me and Lisa, 2 weeks." Trisha folded her arms instantly. "And who's supposed to watch Theo while you're off on some childish trip?" I stepped into the doorway so they couldn't slide past me. "Not me. Not anymore. Your kid isn't my responsibility. If you can't afford childcare, maybe you shouldn't be trying for another baby." Anthony's face went red. Trisha's eyes filled with tears, but not the real kind, the manipulative kind. She shot back. "You're selfish. You have no idea what family means." "Family," I said, grabbing my phone and finally hitting the confirm button on the tickets, "doesn't mean being your free daycare. It means respect. Something you clearly don't have for me." The room went dead silent, except for Theo humming to himself in the corner. And just like that, the war officially started. Anthony muttered something about me being immature. Trisha sniffled like she was auditioning for a soap opera, and they stormed out. Theo trailed behind them, dragging his toy bag like a soldier retreating after a lost battle. The door slammed, and I knew this wasn't over. 5 minutes later, my phone started buzzing. First text, "Anthony. Can't believe you'd turn your back on family. Disappointed in you?" Then Trisha. "You made me cry in front of my son. You should be ashamed." I tossed my phone on the couch. Whatever. I'd said my piece, but they weren't done. Not even close. By the next morning, the reinforcements arrived. My dad called first, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "Your brother told me what happened. You embarrassed him, humiliated Trisha. You should be responsible and sacrifice for the family like I did." And there it was, the line I'd been waiting for. The holy grail of guilt trips. I almost laughed. "Dad, if sacrificing means letting people use me until I've got nothing left, then congratulations, I'm not signing up." He didn't like that. "You think you're better than your father? I worked myself to the bone for us." "Yeah," I shot back, "and all it did was make you bitter and broke. Respect to you, but I'm not repeating the same mistake just so Anthony can chase his midlife crisis dream job and Trisha can dump her kid on me like a UPS package." Click. He hung up. Mom was next. Her approach was softer, but just as manipulative. "Honey, family comes first. Your trips can wait. Theo won't be little forever." "Exactly," I said. "He won't be little forever. So how about Anthony and Trisha actually raise him while he's little, instead of outsourcing it to me?" She sighed, disappointed. "Classic. I thought I raised you better than this." "No," I said. "You raised me to clean up after Anthony. I'm just finally retiring from that job. Cue Waterworks." She started crying about how I was tearing the family apart. I ended the call before she could drag me down with her. Then came Trisha's parents. Different time zone, same script. Long text from her mom about how Trisha was devastated, how I should honor family obligations, how a good uncle wouldn't abandon his nephew. Her dad chimed in with, "Back in my day, family stuck together. You're spoiled, living single with no real responsibilities." I couldn't resist replying to that one. "Back in your day, you also walked uphill both ways in the snow. Congrats. Times changed. Radio silence after that. Guess sarcasm doesn't translate well to Nebraska." By Friday, I'd had enough. I turned off notifications, blocked the group chat, and poured myself a whiskey while Lisa scrolled through hotel options for the trip. She looked up at me, smirking. "So, are we officially the villains now?" "Apparently," I said, raising my glass. Cheers to being selfish. Truth was, it felt damn good. For months, I'd been letting them run my life, bending over backward, canceling trips, watching my career slip. And for what? So Anthony could pretend he was Frank Lloyd Wright and Trisha could play Queen of the Entitled? Nah, not anymore. The funny part? Once the noise died down, I actually started getting my life back. With Theo out of my apartment, I could focus again. My projects got finished on time. My boss even complimented me on snapping back to form. Imagine that. Turns out not babysitting someone else's kid is great for productivity. Lisa noticed it too. "You're lighter," she said one night. "Like you're not carrying someone else's baggage anymore." "Because I'm not," I told her. I dumped it right back where it belongs. Of course, peace never lasts in my family. A week later, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a blocked number leaving a voicemail. My mom's voice, thick with disappointment. "We didn't raise you to be so cold. Your brother needs you. Trisha needs you. Theo needs you. Stop thinking about yourself all the time. Family means sacrifice." I replayed it twice just to make sure I heard it right. Family means sacrifice. The same line they'd beaten into Anthony so hard he actually believed it. The same line Trisha weaponized to justify dumping her responsibilities on me. I saved the voicemail. Not as proof for anyone else, just as a reminder. A reminder of exactly why I had to hold the line. That weekend, I sat with Lisa on the balcony, scrolling through flight confirmations. She leaned against me, smiling. Feels good, doesn't it? Better than good, I said. Feels like freedom. Because here's the truth nobody in my family wanted to admit. This wasn't about helping out once in a while. This was about control. About them deciding my life was less valuable because I didn't have kids. About them trying to lock me into their chaos just because I was convenient. And I wasn't about to let that happen. The war was just getting started. But for the first time in months, I was ready for it. Anthony and Trisha went radio silent for a while after our blow-up. At first, I thought they'd finally gotten the hint. Maybe they were scrambling to find a daycare. Maybe Trisha was venting to her book club about her evil brother-in-law. Maybe Anthony was just sulking. Honestly, I didn't care. For a couple weeks, the silence was bliss. I got my groove back at work. Lisa and I planned out every detail of our trip, and my apartment stayed in one piece. Then came the call. I was in the middle of a workout when my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally, I'd ignore it, but something in my gut told me to pick up. A woman's voice came through. Not Trisha's, not my mom's, but someone new. Hi, are you Anthony's brother? This is Angela. I work with him. He collapsed during a client presentation. They've taken him to the hospital. For a second, I just stood there, dumbbell frozen midair. Collapsed? My brother? I grabbed my keys and drove straight over. When I got to the hospital, Trisha was in the waiting area with Theo. She looked rough, hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes, wearing what looked like yesterday's clothes. She didn't even glare at me when I walked in. That was the first red flag that something was really wrong. How bad is it? I asked. She shrugged, staring at the floor. They said exhaustion, stress. He's been working 60, 70 hours a week between the firm and the side job. I told him it wasn't sustainable, but he wouldn't listen. Side job? I raised an eyebrow. Trisha glanced up, her face pale. He didn't tell you? No, I said, crossing my arms. Guess I'm not on the family newsletter. Apparently, when Anthony realized the architecture gig wasn't covering their bills, he picked up evening shifts at a home improvement store. Weekends, too. So his schedule was basically office all day, manual labor all night. No wonder he face-planted in the middle of a presentation. The doctor finally let us back to see him. Anthony was pale, hooked up to monitors, but awake. He gave me a weak smile like we were just catching up over coffee. Hey, bro, I stared at him. You collapsed in front of your boss. You think this is fine? Trisha shot me a look. Not now. No, actually, I said, leaning closer. Now is perfect. Because this, I pointed at the IV in his arm, is what happens when you keep chasing dreams without a plan and dump your problems on me? Anthony closed his eyes. For once, he didn't argue. He just looked defeated. Later, Trisha pulled me aside. For the first time in forever, she dropped the entitled act. No smirks, no fake tears. Just exhaustion. We're drowning, okay? The rent's too high, the car payments are killing us, and the credit cards are maxed. I can't keep this up. And Anthony? He's killing himself trying to hold it together. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. So your solution was to dump Theo on me for half the week? She nodded, shame flickering across her face. I didn't know what else to do. And I didn't want to tell you the whole truth. That's when she dropped the bomb. Anthony wasn't just broke because of the pay cut. He had been hiding debt. Not small debt either. Gambling, crypto investments. Whatever get-rich-quick scheme you can imagine, he'd tried it and lost. Tens of thousands. I actually laughed. Couldn't help it. The irony was too rich. So let me get this straight. While I was canceling trips and babysitting for free, this guy was out here pretending he's the Wolf of Wall Street? Trisha winced. He thought he could fix it before anyone found out. Yeah, well, he didn't, I said flatly. On the drive home, I replayed it in my head. Suddenly, all the guilt-tripping from my parents made sense. Of course, they wanted me to sacrifice like my father. They'd been bailing Anthony out for years, covering his screw-ups, funneling money his way. And when they finally cut him off, they wanted me to take over as the safety net. I wasn't being asked to help with Theo. I was being asked to fund Anthony's bad decisions. I poured myself a drink when I got home and sat on the balcony with Lisa. Told her everything. She shook her head, laughing in disbelief. Your family's insane. They're not asking for help. They're asking for a bailout. Exactly, I said. And I didn't sign up to be their ATM or their free nanny. She leaned against me. So what now? Now, I smirked. Now I let them clean up their own mess. I'll point them in the right direction, but I'm done being the solution. If Anthony wants to gamble his paycheck away, that's on him. If Trisha wants another baby, that's on her. They wanted me to sacrifice like dad? Not happening. I'm not dying on someone else's battlefield. For the first time in a long time, I felt clarity. The family war wasn't just about babysitting anymore. It was about freedom. Mine. And I wasn't losing it to Anthony's mistakes or Trisha's entitlement. The next battle would be deciding just how far I was willing to go to make sure they understood that. I didn't even have to make the first move. Life did it for me. After Anthony's collapse, his firm shoved him off the big projects. One public faceplant in front of a client, and suddenly he was the unreliable guy. Not fired, just benched. It gutted him more than anything I could have said. Trisha called me a few days later. No smugness in her voice, just exhaustion. We can't keep doing this. The rent, the cars, daycare, it's too much. We're drowning. Yeah? I said. So what are you going to do about it? She paused. That's why I'm calling you? I laughed. See, that's the problem. For months the plan's been dump it on me. That's done. I'm not your nanny. I'm not your ATM. You want advice? Fine. You want my life? Not happening. And for once, she didn't argue. Just a quiet, okay. That was the crack in the wall. Within weeks, reality forced them to actually change. They ditched their overpriced apartment, moved into a smaller one across town, sold one of the shiny cars. Trisha wrangled 2 remote days from her job, saving on daycare. And Anthony? After years of ignoring my advice, he finally took a side gig I hooked him up with, freelance drafting. Real work, not hauling boxes at a hardware store. Amazing what happens when the safety net pulls away. But I wasn't about to let them think things were back to normal. I laid down the new rules in a coffee shop, face to face. I'll watch Theo once a month. Scheduled. No last-minute calls, no drop-ins. If you try using my smart lock code again, you'll be standing in the hallway with your coffee melting in your hand. Clear? Trisha started to speak, but I cut her off. Not negotiable. You wanted me to sacrifice like dad? This is me being responsible. For myself. Either respect that or don't. But I'm not bending again. Anthony nodded, too drained to fight. Trisha gave me that tight-lipped, I hate this smile, but kept her mouth shut. That was good enough. Back home. Only 2 codes existed now. Mine and Lisa's. Family discount revoked. When Lisa saw me setting it up, she grinned. Finally laying down the law? Yep, I said. No more surprise invasions. She kissed me on the cheek. Hot. The first babysitting day under the new system actually worked. Saturday afternoon, 3 hours, planned. I had snacks and games ready. Lisa helped keep Theo busy. And when Trisha showed up right on time, I handed him off like a parcel with delivery confirmation. Stress-free. That wasn't bad, Lisa admitted afterward. Because it's once a month, I said. Not a lifestyle. Work improved instantly. No more screaming interruptions during calls. No more clients watching my webcam tilt sideways because a 5-year-old thought my desk was a jungle gym. My boss noticed too. Suddenly I wasn't the Chuck E. Cheese guy anymore. I was back on track. Mom still tried her guilt trip routine, dropping lines like, "Your father sacrificed everything for family." And every time I gave the same answer, "Yeah," and it broke him. Respect to him, but I'm not repeating it. Usually ended with her sighing like I'd personally killed Christmas. Anthony surprised me once. He texted after his first freelance payout. "Thanks for the lead. It's helping." Short. No excuses. Maybe he was finally learning. Trisha, though, still entitled under the surface. I caught her hinting once about when the second baby comes. I shut her down immediately. When the second baby comes, don't even look at me. She didn't bring it up again. The difference was night and day. For months, I'd been reacting, bending, and cleaning up. Now I was the one drawing the line, and they were adjusting to me. Felt good. Felt like freedom. The war wasn't over. It came to a head at a family dinner a few weeks later. One of those holiday deals where everyone crams into a too small dining room and pretends they actually like each other. Extended family was there, and even Trisha's parents had shown up for the occasion. I walked in with Lisa, calm as ever. I wasn't nervous. My life was back under control. Promotion at work, travel plans set, and a smart lock that kept unwanted visitors out. They couldn't touch me anymore. Of course, they tried. Trisha was the first strike. She waited until the food hit the table before smirking across her glass of wine. Some of us have been busy holding the family together instead of running off on vacations. Classic. I didn't even have to answer because Anthony put his fork down and spoke first. "Cut it out, Trish." She blinked, thrown off. He never contradicted her in public. "Excuse me?" Anthony leaned forward, steady. You know he's right. About everything. We were using him. Theo destroyed his stuff, we dumped responsibility on him, and when he finally drew the line, we treated him like dirt. If he hadn't stood his ground, we'd still be living in denial. The table went quiet. I almost laughed. My golden boy brother finally saying the part everyone refused to admit. Dad broke the silence. Anthony, your brother abandoned you. When we needed him? No, Anthony cut in. He saved me. You and Mom bailed me out for years. You enabled me. Then when you stopped, you expected him to take over. He wasn't the problem. You were. I nearly applauded. Finally, some honesty. Trisha tried to jump in. Anthony, don't do this here. He shook his head. No, they need to hear it. I was hiding debt. Stupid crypto investments, gambling. Tens of thousands. And instead of dealing with it, I leaned on him like it was his job. It wasn't. He had every right to say no. You could feel the ripple around the table. Cousins, aunts, even grandma staring at me like they were seeing the situation for the first time. Mom tried her line, the old faithful. Your father always sacrificed for family. Yeah, I said, leaning back in my chair. And look how that turned out. Broken, bitter, and used up. Respect to him, but I'm not repeating it. Anthony's a grown man, with a wife and kid. That's his responsibility, not mine. Aunt Linda nodded slowly, muttering, he's not wrong. That alone was better than dessert. Trisha's parents, sitting stiff on the other side, glared at me. Her mom snapped, family should sacrifice everything, no matter what. Great, I shot back, smirking. Then maybe you two can start babysitting. I'll text you my smart lock code. Oh wait, no, I won't. That earned a laugh from one of my cousins. Even Anthony cracked a smile. Trisha's face turned redder than the wine. She tried one last swing. You're selfish. All your money, your trips, your fancy apartment, you don't care about anyone but yourself. Anthony cut her down himself. Trish, stop. He's done more for us than anyone. He gave me the contact for my side work. He watched Theo when we needed him most. And he forced us to face reality. You call that selfish? I call that the only person in this family who actually told the truth. That shut her up. The rest of the dinner was awkward, but the tide had turned. The extended family stopped glaring at me and started looking at Anthony and Trisha instead. The golden boy had admitted his screw-ups. The entitled wife had been silenced, and the parents sat there with nothing left but their own guilt. For once, I wasn't the villain. When dessert came out, I stood, clinked my glass, and gave them the only closing line they were going to get. I didn't baby-proof my apartment. I baby-proofed my life, and that installation's permanent. Lisa squeezed my hand, grinning. Anthony nodded in quiet agreement. Trisha avoided my eyes, and my parents said nothing. That was victory enough. I left the dinner lighter than I'd felt in years. Not because everything was perfect. It wasn't. Trisha would always be entitled. My parents would always find ways to guilt trip, and Anthony still had work to do. But the balance had shifted. The old script, where I was the scapegoat and everyone else wrote my part, that was gone. This time, I was the one holding the pen. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.